Come join me today as I take inspiration from sunflowers to write a short story, as well as sew a little bag, bake some cornbread, cook a butternut squash soup, and work in my journal. The summer is drifting away as the air slowly loses its heavy heat. In the evenings, the autumn chill can be felt in the shadows, and the leaves will soon be turning orange and brown. The summer grasses linger in the field, and the ground is dry and dusty. Everything is ready for the first of the autumn rain, waiting for the water to awake the countryside once more for a new season. The last of the sunflowers linger in the garden, their stems tall and petals bright yellow. With brown centers full of small seeds, they gaze at the sun each day, observing intently the glowing ball as it travels through the sky. Even after their petals have fallen and their stems wrinkle, they will remain in the garden, their seeds drying out slowly. The plants keep providing their bounty, and hidden somewhere in the leaves are small butternut squashes, safely tucked under their shaded canopy. The harvest continues unabated. Bit by bit, the vegetables ripen and are soon ready to come in from the garden. Fields of golden yellow spread out as far as the eye can see. Vibrant yellows and deep browns. The flowers stretch out their petals in the sunlight. Growing tall on sturdy stalks, the hardy plants thrive in the heat of the summer. each strong stem supporting a large head of seeds. Fields of flowers run down both sides of the road. Mile by mile they continue on, the seeds readying themselves day by day for harvest. A couple of months ago, I wrote a short story set in the USA sometime around the end of the 19th century, and it was about a girl called Lotta who was writing to a man out west. It was the beginning of a pen pal Old West mail order bride story. Just a few ideas I wanted to explore in a short story form. I thought that it would be fun today to write another story from the man's perspective, and that brings me to water and sunflowers. First, I wanted to do a little bit of research about sunflowers. Originally native to the Americas and long domesticated there, sunflower seeds were brought to Europe in the 16th century, becoming very popular and heavily cultivated in places such as Russia. Russia and Ukraine today are the world's top producers for sunflowers. The seeds from the flower have a range of culinary uses. They can be dried, roasted, ground, and also made into oil. Around the world, sunflowers symbolize different things, such as the harvest, good luck, and to be adored. In Kate Greenaway's 19th century book on the Victorian language of flowers, sunflowers are listed with two meanings. The tall variety of sunflowers apparently indicate haughtiness, and the dwarf variety of sunflower symbolize being adored. With two very different meanings, a Victorian man or woman would really need to check they had the correct sunflower variety to make sure they got their intended message across, unless of course they wish to say they adored someone's haughtiness. In that case, one would assume that they used both varieties of sunflowers and ideally got their message across. I've looked at Kate Greenaway's book before in another video, and I always enjoy looking through the lists of flowers and their meanings and really wondering just how seriously the Victorians took their flowers. I suspect that looking for messages in flowers was a parlour game and probably not taken too seriously. I will link the book in the description box below. You can view the entire thing on the Internet Archive for free if you're interested. The complexities of Victorian floral conversations aside, sunflowers were a perfect fit for the story today and really helped to inspire some of water's backstory. As they are a native plant to North America, I really liked the idea of having the seeds come full circle. If you had listened to the first of these two stories, you will know that Lotta's family background was German, and I decided to make Walter's family background Russian. I imagined Walter's grandmother coming over from Russia, bringing with her seeds from her homeland, ones that were very familiar to her, ones that she saw in the fields growing each summer. Seeds that reminded her of her old home in Russia, and she brought them with her, not knowing that those same flowers were originally from the continent that was her new home. Having her give those same seeds to Walter, and then having him travel further west to stake out his homestead claim, bringing with him the seeds as well, it brings those flowers full circle. Those seeds tie both places together, and I loved the idea that Walter had, without realising it, brought something with him that had a deep family connection, but also had long historical roots in his new home. The sunflower seeds represented both his family's connections in the old world, his legacy, his old home, and his new life on his homestead. I think they will also go on to symbolise later in the story the struggle against the elements and ultimately asks the question of whether or not he will succeed. Will these flowers grow in the colder climate of the mountains where his homestead is? Will he be able to succeed in growing them there? Those questions are part of the story for another time, and it's definitely one I will be returning to in the future. For now, let's go join Walter on the morning that he left home.
Yesterday, your smile, your style so fly, my oh my. As time stood still, I got the urge to steal a kiss, and so I do. Now I'm embarrassed, but just a little bit. Oh, there must be gold on those lips and honey on those fingertips. Can you imagine us two out in the woods
Walter's Sunflowers, a short story by Ida Williams. Walter crept softly along the landing, quietly passing his parents' master bedroom. Almost all of the inhabitants of the townhouse were asleep as the young man slipped along the long passage, wallpapered on both sides with ornate patterns. A single backpack hung over one shoulder, and wearing a simple set of travelling clothes, Walter was only taking the little he needed, the little in that over-flooded house that was his own. Stepping carefully along the Persian carpets, a single candle in hand, he went down the staircase and passed under the gilded chandelier. It hung ominously over his head as the bottom step gave a sudden creak under his foot. He froze, eyes darting back upstairs. Though not afraid, Walter was not one for scenes or debates, and 4:30 in the morning was an unwise time to begin a new round of family arguments. In any event, there was nothing anyone could say that would stop him. Once he had set his mind and heart on a course, even a powerful ancient conqueror king would find it hard to convince Walter to stray. He would do things his way. No noise came from upstairs. The only thing Walter could hear was the constant ticking from the grandfather clock that sat against the wall of the reception hall, its gold-edged panels and expert craftsmanship glittering in the candlelight. Upon entering the parlour, Walter headed to the large mahogany centre table. Moving round the velvet armchairs and a superbly uncomfortable love seat, past the bookshelves filled with books that no one read, and a menagerie of paintings, vases, statues, and other things that did nothing but need endless dusting. Walter could feel the familiar stifling feeling catch at his throat, and it engulfed him, as it always did. All the knickknacks and antiques that his father bought by the lot, not because he loved them, but because some salesman had assured him that they were the height of fashion and, more importantly, they were expensive. Nothing mattered as much as the price tag. Italian paintings of frolicking maidens and angry Chinese dragons. They all had one purpose: to clearly proclaim that the family had money to freely spend. Walter placed an envelope down on the table. He felt no need to write a name on the front. It was for all and any of them. He held one further letter in his pocket. That one had a name written neatly in his long, looping handwriting on the front. But that letter didn't belong in that room. It didn't belong upstairs. His task completed, Walter opened a side door and headed quickly down the back stairs to the basement kitchen. The servant rooms were in the attic, so there was no need to worry about waking anyone up down there. He had one last task: to place the final envelope on the kitchen table, and then he would begin his journey. For months the plans had slowly and steadily formed in his mind. This was a journey that was long overdue, and he felt calm. However, as all good plans inevitably find, a hitch then appeared. Instead of the dark kitchen he expected, he found a lamp burning, the stove lit, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. "You're leaving early, Yuri." The elderly woman moved forward with surprising speed considering her age and hunched appearance, and took the bag swiftly from his shoulder. "I have coffee ready for you." Walter opened his mouth to protest, but caught the look in her eye and thought better of it. He resigned himself to the disruption to his plan and sighed, lowering himself into one of the 2 chairs positioned in front of the stove. Just as much as him, his grandmother was also one to pursue her own plans, although Walter had managed to develop a great deal more stubbornness. "You're up early too, Babka," he mumbled, taking the mug she handed him. The warm coffee ran down his throat, spreading warmth from head to toe. There was a little bit more in that early morning drink than simply coffee and milk. A little addition to fire up the blood and to chase away the chills. Despite his annoyance to the change in his carefully thought-out plan, he gave her a grateful smile. Of all the family that lay asleep upstairs on their feather pillows, his grandmother was the only one he had regretted not saying goodbye to. "Why so early, I wonder?" she replied, sinking down into the chair opposite him. She raised a bushy eyebrow. "Don't fool me, Yuri. I've known you always. I knew what you planned, just watching for when." Her accent lay thick and heavy, curling around her pet name for him. Never able to pronounce his American name, Yuri she had named him. How his father had ranted at the time, wanting nothing to do with a name so clearly clinging to the old country. They had left all that behind, he had yelled, blood veins in his forehead throbbing. "We are in America now." Still, it had made no difference to Babka. Yuri was the name she called her first grandson, and Yuri he would always be to her. "Do you know where you are going?" she asked, dark eyes watching him intently. Walter nodded, taking another sip of hot coffee. "It's all planned, the land and everything. Not much, but enough to start with." "Good. It will be hard, Yuri." "I know." His path stretched out before him, each step considered, and all the unknown factors would be worked through in due time. Walter was stubborn, but never foolhardy. With a motion upwards, she continued, "Nothing like here." "I want it so." She nodded and held the warm mug between her aged and gnarled hands, ones that had seen plenty of toil. "Send me a letter if you get the chance." "Of course, Babka." Walter took a final sip of coffee. "My train will be in soon. I'd best be off." Babka watched her grandson's face, seeing both the weight of his adventure to come and the undeniable peace the decision gave him. It had been years since she had seen peace in his eyes. She held that moment in her hands like a pebble from the river. It was another moment of goodbye. Her life had gathered several such pebbles. One she had collected the day her father headed out to war. She could still feel the stiff fabric of his coat as she clung weeping. Her mother was another pebble that arrived one winter morning full of fever and snow. Her farewell to her home country, watching the only land she'd ever known disappear from a train carriage under a torrent of rain. And then her husband, so soon after arriving in the land he had dreamed of, slipping away quickly and suddenly. One goodbye after another. If God was kind, maybe this one would not be permanent. But if Faith had taught her anything over the course of her many years, she knew no goodbye was really a permanent one. Walter stood up and shouldered his pack once more. "If you change your mind, I will send for you. My place is here." Walter stared sadly at the ceiling. Her place was there, in that house where she was treated like a servant, living in the kitchen and sleeping in the attic, forever kept away from the guests and the polite company his father so ardently enjoyed. Babka knew his thoughts and laid a hand on his arm. "I need to be of use." She motioned around the kitchen. "In here I am. I am not young enough to toil in the fields, nor elegant enough for ballrooms." Walter gave no reply. Stubborn had met stubborn. He simply gave her a hug. "Don't hold them ill in your thoughts, Yuri. Make your own path as you see fit. That's what life and this country is for." Babka pulled 2 small parcels out of her apron pocket and handed them to him. "When you find your land, plant these for me. We used to have them when I was a girl." Stepping outside and heading off resolutely down the street, she watched until the early morning mist swallowed him up. Another pebble fell gently into her collection. It was not until Walter was on the train that he opened the 2 parcels. One contained freshly baked cornbread, buttery and yellow. Hungry, he chomped through and opened the other bag. It was full of seeds. Sunflowers. Walter held the small seeds in his hand. Black with long stripes, they nestled into his palm like hibernating bugs. With half a glance outside to the gathering clouds, he wondered if they would grow in the mountains. Would there be enough sun for them to follow? Only time would tell. Walter then leaned his head back, and as he often did at pivotal moments of his life, he contently took a long nap. The end. Thank you all for everyone's enthusiasm for Lotta and Walter in the issue 8 video. I had not planned to return to their story quite so soon, but I started to think about Walter and I had to write this little scene down. I hope you enjoyed a glimpse into his life and his family and the fateful morning he left home. If you would like to hear the first story from Lotta's point of view, I will link it in the video description box below. For the project today, to go with the story, I looked through my basket of fabric scraps, and when I found the dark brown fabric, I decided to make a little bag with an applique sunflower. The brown fabric is a piece of upholstery fabric, and I found it in the offcuts bin at the fabric store, which is why I only have a tiny little piece of it. Although it easily unravels, it has a lovely texture, and it was thick enough to give the bag structure without me needing to use any stabilizer. I ended up making about 20 petals for the sunflower applique, and I have not done applique for a while, so it was a fun little bag to sew. The petals took quite a long time to make, but it was very satisfying when they all came together. Making all the projects to accompany my stories is one of my favourite things to do, and I love experimenting with different techniques and crafts. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you're new, welcome, my name is Ida. On this channel, I share short stories from the world of Meadow Afternoon, along with behind the scenes of my novels, a little bit of slow living, cooking and crafting. If you would like to learn more about the world of Meadow Afternoon, you can find a link to my website below. Feel free to say hello in the comments and please consider subscribing so you don't miss the next issue of Meadow Afternoon. Until next time.